Acting Speaker, I also rise to address the National Electricity Victoria Amendment VicGrid Bill 2024. And Acting Speaker, it's another day in the life of the Allan Labor government and another false promise that Victoria's power bills will be reduced as a result of this legislation, yet there's no evidentiary point, Acting Speaker, that will in fact be the case. In fact, over the last 10 years, Acting Speaker, this government has been pledging that power prices will be lower than they currently are, and every year that they've made that commitment, power prices have not gone, to quote the minister only a few weeks ago in this chamber, down, 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 but they've been going up, up, up. And don't believe me, Acting Speaker, just for a moment, believe Victorians who are receiving their power bills in the mail at the moment, and power prices are going up. And the reason for that, of course, Acting Speaker, is because this government's energy policy, this government's energy focus is being driven purely by ideology and not being driven by the practicality of delivering renewable, reliable and affordable energy for Victorians, not just Victorian households, but also for Victorian businesses. In the last 12 months alone, Acting Speaker, power prices have increased in this state. 25% for households, 26% for businesses. That is having an incredible impact on the bottom line of Victorians at this point in time, in the middle of a cost of living crisis. It's in addition to cost increases on school fees, on mortgages, on grocery bills. Power prices going up, 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 not down, 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 to quote the minister again, is just making life all that more difficult for Victorians at this point in our history. Acting Speaker, this particular bill deals with VicGrid, and I am in one sense absolutely thrilled that finally this government is defining what the heck VicGrid actually does. Because VicGrid, for those of us with a longer memory than just this term, will know that this government introduced or announced VicGrid early in the former term, in the previous term of Parliament, in the previous term of the then Andrews government. And during that time, for a period of that time, I had the privilege of serving as the opposition's Shadow Minister for Energy and Renewables. And it was a real mystery to me and to every Victorian what the purpose of VicGrid actually was. And in the absence of that, as Shadow Minister for Energy and Renewables at the time, I thought, well, one of the major issues we have in Victoria in terms of energy, energy in total is energy transmission. And it made sense to me at the time that VicGrid should be responsible for energy transmission in this state, which is why at the time I took a policy to our Shadow Cabinet, which was approved, stating that the remit of VicGrid would be expanded to facilitate transmission changes in the state, that the Liberals and Nationals will vest VicGrid with the authority to carry out the work of transmission infrastructure in this state, in addition to assuming the role of transmission planner in place of AEMO. Now that, Acting Speaker, was in August 2021. We are now in, March 2024, some 3 years on, and lo and behold, the Allan Labor government has introduced a bill to effectively do just that. Now, here we go. In fact, the media release at the time that I released together with the Leader of the Opposition stated, and I quote, and I'm happy to provide this to Hansard for their reference as well, the Liberal Nationals will also direct VicGrid to establish a competitive evaluation process through which this transmission project and all future transmission projects will be planned and costed. This process will prioritise keeping power costs low for consumers whilst adopting best practice procurement guidelines for major infrastructure projects, drawing upon private sector expertise and consulting in a detailed and meaningful way with the community. To that point about community consultation, Acting Speaker, I fully support the the textual amendment moved by the member for Brighton, Mr Newberry, where he seeks to amend Part 8 of this bill relating to the Community Advisory Committee, specifically that the minister must establish the Community Advisory Committee and the Minister and CEO of VicGrid must consult community advisory committees. Now, here's the thing, Acting Speaker. We all know that we've got 6 renewable energy zones around this state, but we also know that it's one thing to have a renewable energy zone in this state. It's another thing to get the power from where it's generated to where it needs to be, and that's to the grid. And in order to solve that, we need to have greater transmission infrastructure in this state. I'm pleased this parliament is finally talking about transmission infrastructure in this state, because for far too long it has been the elephant in the room. It has been the untouchable subject in terms of energy transition that this government and other people in power-making roles have not wanted to touch and have not wanted to talk about. I am thrilled that we're finally having this very important conversation. But as part of that conversation, Acting Speaker, we mustn't just be talking about new transmission infrastructure. We must be also talking about the upgrading of existing transmission infrastructure as well, if we are to do this correctly. And we must be talking about engagement with community along the way. We have a circumstance in Victoria at the moment where one option and only option is being presented to communities in the west of Victoria. It's being imposed upon them, which they, frankly, don't agree with. That is the wrong way of going about infrastructure, transmission infrastructure in this state. The right way is to actually task VicGrid with the responsibility, as we proposed back in August 2021, of directing VicGrid to have responsibility for transmission infrastructure in this state, from woe to go, Acting Speaker. From the inception of the idea, from the community consultation piece to the planning piece, to advising government on where transmission infrastructure is actually needed, of where transmission infrastructure not only is needed but can also be upgraded as well, using best practice major project procurement processes in order to let out the contracts, to assisting with the first turning of the sod on the project, to the delivery of the project, to the implementation of the project, to the certification of the project, right through to the final stages of delivery of the project. We think this is entirely sensible. We thought it back then in 2021, and I dare say it's for the government to consider that very worthwhile policy process and policy proposal in 2024. Of course, Acting Speaker, we're doing this because one of the driving factors behind this side of the House at the moment is to keep Victorians' bills as low as possible. And Acting Speaker, you and I both know that at the moment, because of the policy settings of this government, power bills are going up, 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 not down, down, down. That must be a guiding principle of policy. That must be a guiding principle of governments. That must be the guiding principle of policy makers when it comes to our energy transition. Now, I do refer, Acting Speaker, to a media release from my colleague, the Shadow Minister for Energy, Affordability and Security, Mr Davis, in the other place, who only last week suggested that, Acting Speaker, earlier this week, suggested that reports today of a proposed belated decrease of the Victorian default offer will provide little comfort to Victorians who have endured years of double-digit percentage price increases. Mr Davis says in this release, since the 1st of July 2022, Victorian households have suffered a Victorian default offer increase of 17%, or $240 per household. $240 in the middle of a cost of living crisis actually makes a difference, Acting Speaker. The proposed 6.4% decrease will only apply to Victorians on VDO contracts, just 13% of Victorian households and 20% of small businesses. My bottom line is this, Acting Speaker. I think we can all agree on both sides of the chamber that we want to get, we want energy to be affordable, we want energy to be reliable, and we want energy to be renewable. The difference being, Acting Speaker, that the government have had 10 years to achieve that, and frankly, they haven't. Their plan is flimsy at best, and it is not delivering the results for Victorians at this time. It is not delivering cheaper power, and that is the key difference between the opposition and the government.